Welcome to our next installment of interviews with Lipedema Ladies. Women who are forging a new trail of hope and awareness and understanding for this very underdiagnosed condition. And they have messages of hope. And always their journeys are quite interesting. I was delighted to run into Andrea Wilson. Andrea, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So when I first heard of you, and my initial thing was, well, so how much do you weigh and what is your height? And it totally struck me that my mind was blown because you don't fit the description of what I considered to be a lipedema lady. So straighten us all out. Give us your stats and tell us how you discovered you had lipedema.
Sure. I'm 5'8", I weigh 140 pounds. And I think that that's one of the reasons that took me so long to get diagnosed, was because I had looked up working out and stuff, how, why am I not losing weight? What, and that I had come across that, but showing that it was so rare and seeing a lot of the photos, I thought, well, that doesn't apply to me. So it ended up actually spreading and getting a lot worse than it maybe could have if it was more well known, and especially if it was more well known that it affects people of all sizes. So it wasn't until I went to a vascular surgeon for my vein issues, and as soon as she saw me, she said, you have lipedema, right? And so that started the discussion, and she kind of headed me in the right direction, and it went from there.
So let me back up even further, because a lot of the women I've spoken to say, I knew something was wrong back when I was such and such an age. When did you first get the inkling that there was something different about your body?
Well, I always had saddlebags ever since I can remember. Even at 140, that's the heaviest I had ever been. I generally was around 120, very athletic, very slender, but I always had in my hips the saddlebags I could never get rid of, no matter what size I was. So it wasn't until my early to mid 30s that I started noticing things getting worse, no matter what I did. And my biggest indication was my calves, because usually you don't gain a lot of weight in your calves if you're not gaining everywhere. And I got to the point where I couldn't wear high boots anymore. So I said, well, something's not right. But even at that, I ignored it and said, okay, maybe I'm just muscular. And it was once the pain started that I said, okay, something is not right here.
So we're talking about even maybe as far back as puberty or in your teen years?
I would say yes. And then it was, whether it was a surgery or stress or whatever the hormonal component is, because I know they don't usually know yet. It seems like something really set it off, and what had always been there then started spreading, and now I basically have it everywhere.
So physically you were noticing it in your calves, and I think it's sometimes easy to discount an anomaly like that, but then the pain started. What did it feel like?
It was different in different areas. For my thighs, it was the sides of my thighs that were the worst. And they were just like bruised, like I had been punched in the leg or ran into something, but it hurt all the time. And now that I've gotten quite a bit further, I see that it definitely makes a difference with what I've been eating, and I can kind of control the inflammation a little bit. In my calves, it was a very tight, almost like a brick feeling, which when I had surgery, they found out that I was very fibrotic in that area. So that may have been why there was a different feeling. And then once it spread into my arms, that was just a very heavy feeling. They just were always tired. I couldn't really put them above my arms. They got so it didn't feel like a bruise like my legs, but it was just such a heavy, like it hurt to just not set them on something.
And this was before the diagnosis?
Yes.
So when you finally were diagnosed, I mean, up until that point, were you Google searching all the time and trying to self-diagnose?
Because I've always been very athletic, so I could never understand why I couldn't get rid of certain areas like the rest of my body. And then once the pain started, I definitely started researching, and I had run across it a few times, but like I said, with my size, I kind of discounted it. Plus with it being rare, it's like, okay, that stuff, I'm not going to get something that's that rare. So I discounted it. But, you know, by the time I saw my vein doctor, I already had the cuffs around the ankles and everything, which I also thought was weird because I had my regular doctor checking me for edema and to see if I had fluid because we knew something was going on. And once I saw the cuffs and realized that was a hallmark sign, I thought, well, maybe this is what I have.
Interesting. So then you finally get a diagnosis. Were you puzzled because you knew what lipedema looked like, or were you
Right.
relieved?
A little bit of both. And then a little bit of overwhelming because there's not a lot of guidance on what to do yet because a lot of doctors don't even know what it is. My PCP had no idea, had never heard of it. So there's not a lot of places to go to get help, and you kind of have to search the internet and work your own way through it, which is definitely a challenge.
I hear that often from the lipedema ladies. They have to be their own advocate. And actually, you were kind of fortunate that your doctor saw it and said, oh, I know what that is.
Absolutely.
Was it just happenstance that your doctor, is this Dr. Montgomery we're talking about?
No, it's Dr. Nelson. She's in North Homestead.
Yeah. So she obviously
she's
is
very
well
familiar
versed.
with it and is researching it and is getting involved in a lot of stuff to do with that. So it was something that I don't want to say she was glad she saw it, but because it was something she's taking a lot of interest in because it's becoming a lot more known and common. It was just very fortunate that I came across somebody who knew what it was.
Yeah. So you know what it is, and now you have a doctor that is giving you the diagnosis. What was the protocol that you were prescribed, or what was the next step now that you know what it is?
Well, she told me to wait a few months because I had just had my veins done. You know, I had the leaking valves, and so she wanted me to recover from that. And from that point, she suggested, I was lucky enough that Cleveland Clinic is right by me. So I had Dr. Bartholomew that I could go to that was 45 minutes away, where people travel hours and hours to see him. And he also is very, very well known to be dealing with lipedema. So I went to see him first, started looking at the possibility of the surgery, getting the liposuction, got his opinion, and you know, he did all the medical necessity papers for me, and then started speaking with surgeons to see who I felt the most comfortable going to.
Because what I've heard is the liposuction for lipedema patients isn't the one size fits all liposuction for
Right.
for just the general population.
Right.
So thankfully, Dr. Bartholomew was able to connect you. And not every woman, and by the way, this whole series is about education. We know that you can't just blanket label a condition. Every person is unique and individual, but our hope is to shine a light on different paths to getting help, because one of the things I've heard over and over is they'll do anything so it won't get worse.
Right.
And we want to get better. So these individual stories of hope are what we hope you glean from this. None of this is medical advice. Always seek your own medical attention and direction. But what made you say, yes, surgery is the route for me?
Well, and that's the thing, is that it's not just surgery. I mean, I have a vibration plate, I have a rebounder, I wear compressions, so there's so much more that goes to it. And now obviously I have the pump, which has helped immensely. But so it wasn't just, I'm going to jump into surgery, but it was something because it had spread so far and I was in so much pain that to me it was a no-brainer. If I broke my foot, I would go to the doctor as well. So, I understand a lot of people, because of the cost and because insurance doesn't always pay for it, it's a very, very big decision. But for me, I couldn't take the pain anymore.
So you had different areas. Were they each individually taken care of with surgery, or?
Yes, I've had 3 surgeries so far. They did the ankles to above the knees for the first surgery, and then my thighs for the second surgery, and I've had my full arms done. And I will probably need to go back and do abdomen and buttocks still, because it has gotten worse there since the other surgeries, which is also a common thing. Is it's not just go get surgery and everything is better. Sometimes with the hormonal shift, that then makes it start to progress in another area. But even at the size that I am, I was late stage 2, early stage 3. So it had progressed quite a bit.
Wow. Well, I remember when we first talked on the phone and you gave me your stats. I'm like, I would love to be 5'8" and 140 pounds,
Right.
but I would never want to trade the condition that you're dealing with because of the pain. And I've talked to a lot of women, they say seeking help isn't just about reducing their size, really the pain and the mobility. Right. How was your mobility affected? Because you're fairly athletic.
Yeah, I actually got to the point where I was so miserable that I really didn't work out much anymore. Everything just hurt and every time I would work out, it would inflame everything more. So that kind of was a bad thing for me too, because I've always been very big into working out. I've always been into, athletics. And so that was a big change to my lifestyle, is that I had no motivation to do it because it hurt.
So you're pretty brave to undergo 3 surgeries with even the thought of more to come. For someone out there that is considering surgical help, what should they expect? How much time did this take out of your life too?
It was a lot bigger of a surgery than I had anticipated. You get extremely bruised, and then in addition to being extremely bruised, you have to put the compressions on and off over that bruising. So it basically looked like I had been in a car accident on my legs, and it looks worse than it is after the first few days, and then you swell a lot too. So it is definitely, I remember limping around for about a week, and I had to elevate my legs. Even when I came back to work, I had a chair and I had to elevate my legs because it was a very stinging feeling. So it's definitely a bigger surgery than I had prepared myself for, but at the same time, it's so worth it.
And why is it worth it?
Because it has decreased the pain so much that I'm back to working out. Even needing the other surgeries, the areas aren't nearly as bad as the rest were. My legs were the worst, and obviously due to gravity, I'm sure that's why, but it has given me my full mobility back, and I can do the things that I used to be able to do now without being miserable.
So surgery, brave move, well worth it, but you still have to manage this condition.
Absolutely. I do the pump every day. I wear compressions every day. I do the vibration plate, the rebounder. I take Mucinex
and that surprised me when you said Mucinex. What does Mucinex do? I'm sure all the lipedema ladies out there saying, Brenda, you should know this. Well, what?
Right. It thins your lymphatic fluid so that it's not getting congested, because that's the gist of what the issue is that, it's like snaking a drain. And so it thins the fluid. And for me, I noticed a decrease in swelling after a day. And I've heard from a lot of other ladies that it has helped them a lot. And that's the thing too, is that even with, any Mucinex or any other kind of pills or whatever that might help, everybody is different. So for some people it helps, for some it doesn't. For me, it made a big difference. Yeah, and I did that in tandem with starting the pump, and I noticed a huge difference in swelling, and I lost 4 to 5 pounds within the first 4 days of doing both of those at the same time.
Whoa.
And I think it was just fluid.
So you are one of the very first people that has been brought to my attention that is using the Optimal Plus, which is the only pneumatic compression device that is cleared by the FDA for the treatment of lipedema. And here you are, my first lipedema lady, who I can say has for a couple months been using it. Let's talk about it. Had you ever done pneumatic compression before?
No.
Tell me what your garment looks like and tell me what the device is like.
Well, the pants it basically looks like a snowmobile suit. It goes all the way up to just below my breasts, so that it covers both legs and also my stomach area. And then the jacket goes completely around and zips up the front, kind of looks like a straight jacket.
So you have upper extremity and the full lower
Correct, because I
extremity.
have it everywhere. And I do an hour at a time, and I have to do them at different times of the day, because if you did them back to back, it would overwhelm your lymphatic system. So I try to do one in the morning and one in the evening.
And what's it like when you're doing it? What does it feel like?
It almost reminds me of like a blood pressure cuff medicine, but not that tight. And it starts at the legs and then works all the way up to the abs, and then it releases, and then it starts again. And I immediately can, as soon as I'm finished with it, I can feel the difference in the swelling.
Really? Does it feel like a massage?
Yeah, a little bit that too. And I like to do it after I've had a workout, because then it's like I get to massage everything right after working out. So it definitely does also feel like a massage.
So it's worth the time that you put in. I guess
Absolutely.
your doctor prescribed twice a day for an hour each time.
Yes. And it's worth it, because if I haven't done it for a couple days, I can tell. And I start, especially because I sit a lot at work. So in all the bends in my knees and my elbows, I start to get clogged really badly there.
So it's become your protocol. This is part of your regular routine. And the
Yes.
most successful lymphedema and lipedema patients that I've talked to are people that are realizing that this is something that needs to be managed. There are
Yes.
solutions, but then you have to back up those solutions, like surgery, with compression.
Yes, it's definitely not have surgery and you never have to do anything again. It's still in every single day, lots of time each day, different things, finding what works for you the best.
Yeah. So the Optimal Plus is an advanced technology. This has Bluetooth capabilities. It has pre-therapy, post-therapy. There's a lot of bells and whistles. It's really the Mercedes-Benz of pneumatic compression. But when I see buttons and options, I wonder, is it easy to use?
It absolutely is, because my doctor preset it to what he wanted me to do. And now I've actually been talking to our rep, Deb, and she's going to go through with me, now that we've got the Bluetooth set up, and change a couple things that I feel aren't working how I would like them to, and just alter it a little bit. But it's literally, when I first got it, it's pressing the start button, because the doctor has what he wants you to do. And it says on top of the machine exactly what the doctor wants it set at. So you always know.
And what about the garments? Because I know for a lot of lipedema ladies, mobility is an issue. And is it hard to put on? I know that there are some other compression devices out there that require some gymnastics to get into. So
right.
Is it hard to put on the garment?
I've always thought it's very easy. You just zip up the two sides of the legs, so that's simple. The jacket would obviously be a little bit harder, but if you can zip a jacket, you can zip that. And when you stop using it, it deflates. So it's not like it's still full of air and you're trying to get this thing off. It deflates for you within 20, 30 seconds. So then it's back to how it was at the beginning. So I don't think it's that challenging at all. It's actually very easy to get in and out of.
And we don't need to get into the specifics of how it was covered, but you did not have to pay for this out of pocket completely. You did have insurance coverage.
Correct. The only thing I had to pay was co-insurance.
Your doctor had the notes, and that's the important thing with all of this, the proper diagnosis and the proper support notes.
And it took all of the medical notes from all the different doctors I had been to along the way that said yes, and it's necessary, it will help. And with having the vein issues on top of the lipedema, I think that helped also.
Well, that is really encouraging, because this is a very somewhat new option that is available to lipedema ladies. You talked with me also about the importance of finding a tribe of people to connect with, to share stories and encouragement, and so you don't feel alone in this process.
Right. Yes, that's been one of the biggest helps to me, is the Facebook groups. I know there are some groups that meet at the Cleveland Clinic, which has been put on hold because of the COVID situation, but There are some in-person stuff, but the Facebook groups have been so helpful because there's so many different ones now. There's a specific one for Ohio, so it's people in my area. And then there's one specifically for the liposuction, so you can find out everything about surgery. And then there are diets, all the things that you have to change or have to understand that goes together. There's different groups, different perspectives, different opinions on what has worked for different people. So I've learned a lot, and it's nice because you can just go into the search function in those groups, and whatever it is you're trying to learn about, there's a bunch of posts from the past about it. So I have learned a lot through that.
Have you found that other people have been surprised looking at you that you have lipedema, even among the lipedema tribe?
Yes, but less so in those groups, because now that it's becoming a little more common, there are more smaller women that are starting to figure it out earlier, and we're starting to see that there are more, that it affects people at all shapes and sizes. And luckily, that also means that people are starting to find it earlier.
And that is such a key, because it is a progressive condition. At certain stages, it then ultimately becomes lymphedema. So is it sometimes hereditary, I've heard? Is there anybody in your family that has
On my
this?
mom's side, yes. Yes, definitely. I believe my sister has it. I believe my mom has it, and all varying progressions. But yeah, once I started learning, then I started looking around at my family members, and I can definitely tell there's a hereditary component.
Well, when you learn that 11% of women have this condition, yet it is still so underdiagnosed, your story gives me hope and encouragement. I know that on the Lipedema Project website, there's an interactive map where you can find a practitioner that is an expert in lipedema. And I know your Dr. Bartholomew is on that map.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of women out there that are like, well, I'm pretty sure I have it. I've diagnosed myself, but how do I get a prescription? How do I get help? And I think that's a great resource. What other resources would you recommend to ladies out there?
Well, like I said, definitely any lipedema Facebook groups, just to find out information. There's a lot of people that post pictures, and you see over and over that people say, wow, those are my legs, and they're seeing similarities. And absolutely reaching out to a doctor that knows a lot about it, because a lot of doctors don't. And then just Google searches. I've learned a lot just, typing in different things.
You've been so generous with your time and just share your story. And for someone watching today that could really use some encouragement, they can't help but be inspired by you. But do you have some parting thoughts that you would like to share with the audience today?
No, I guess my main reason for doing it is just because the earlier you find it, the better off you are. And there are so many people that discount, oh, that can't be what I have. And it is such a challenge to navigate your own way through a medical condition, especially one that's not well known. So any information that can help somebody else just makes me happy, because that was the worst part, was watching it get worse and not knowing what to do. And now I'm on the other side of it, where I feel like I have a good handle on it.
Oh yeah, you do. And you are downright inspiring. Andrea, I can't thank you enough for your time. And I also want to encourage any of you out there, learn from these women who have forged their own path, that have connected with really good practitioners and gotten diagnoses. Some have taken the path of surgery. Many are taking the path of pneumatic compression and the Optimal Plus. Whatever you do, we want to support you, and we are very excited to share more stories. If you know of someone that you think would be a great Lipedema Lady interview, shoot me an email at bviola@medsoulsupplier.com. Thanks everyone for being here today. We'll see you again. Have a great day.